All right, we're live. Now
We are.
share your gripe.
All right. I have a gripe about niobium because I looked it up, and it's so I did my research, and niobium is used in like piercing metal because it anodizes into really pretty colors, and it's also incredibly resistant to corrosion. So it's got a lot of industrial uses as well because of those reasons. And I'm like, mostly the resistance to corrosion. And I'm like, all right, that's cool. It's in the column that I designated marsupials. It's beautiful, but it's strong. Let's make it something cute. Like what's beautiful in the marsupial range? I'm like, possums. Possums are they've got the chibi faces. Let's make her a possum. She can be wearing armor because that's a thing I'm doing now. And then I looked up. I was like, why did they name it niobium? They named it for Niobe. Niobe is a Greek mythical figure.
Mhm.
Do you know about Niobe?
I do, but the internet probably doesn't, so
I mean,
please
the
share.
internet probably does, but just in case, she's the grieving mother. She is the prototypical grieving mother because she was bragging on the fact that she had a bunch of kids and someone got pissed off that she was bragging and sent Apollo and Artemis to murder her children. So her 7 sons were killed by Apollo and her 7 daughters were murdered by Artemis. There's a lot of classical art devoted to this moment when the woman is screaming in the center trying to protect her children and they're all lying around. I mean, they're grown. They didn't have them looking like infants or anything, but yeah, her 7 strapping sons lying around with arrows in them, and yeah, I'm like, okay, so first of all, that's a terrible story, and I hate it.
I mean, first of all, yes.
Second of all, why did they name this element after that? And I looked into it, and it turns out that the element below it is really hard to separate from it. The element below it is tantalum, and it was named tantalum because Tantalus is the character that could never be satisfied in his afterlife because that's the punishment he was given, and the person trying to isolate it with acid couldn't get it, so he named it tantalum in order to acknowledge that it's a very unsatisfying element. And niobium, they mistook them for the same thing for a long time, but when they finally separated that out, they were like, well, let's just name it after one of Tantalus's children. Niobe, why not? What the fuck? Doesn't. And I'm like, you fucking bastards. Why would you do this to me? Like,
I mean, is this something that you have to work into the card?
well, I figured out a way to work it into the card so that at least I show you. Ugh. She's sitting on a vase. The vase will depict some element of the carnage, but she is separated from it, so not really. Niobium is not Niobe, nor was she named because it's a grief-stricken element. She was named because of her proximity to tantalum, and I'm like, that's stupid. Could have come up with a much better name. And tantalum had multiple children, so they just picked Niobe because they thought it sounded good.
I mean, it does.
It does. Yes. It's beautiful word. I thought she was like a demigoddess of beauty or something until I looked it up. It sounds like it should be.
Yeah. Oh, Greek mythology.
Yeah. It is some bullshit. Um makes you think it had a lot less to do with people trying to kind of feel out a moral compass and more to do with what would I get away with if I could.
Possibly, although I was also just reading a thing about how a lot of what we know about Greek and Roman mythology was like just whatever people wrote down, and they could very well have been full of shit and we wouldn't know.
Right? Or like freaking incels or people who are angry like I'm going to demonize this thing.
Yeah. Or people just writing the Latin equivalent or Greek equivalent of shit posts.
Right?
Just being like, ha, wouldn't it be funny if Zeus did this?
Yeah. Shit posting has been around for much longer than we realize.
Mm-hmm. There's
And-
shit posts carved into walls in Pompeii.
I love that.
On this date, I baked bread.
People change so little.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of assumptions they made. Like everybody knows that Niobe was also a giant bitch and her children went and slaughtered villages. But what nobody pays attention to is the fact that they got their comeuppance. So I'm not going to write down that first part, but I'll remind everybody that second part happened. I don't know. 4,000 years ago? Why would I know?
A good question.
You just have to hope that, that the equivalent of the tomb of Hatshepsut opens up and you get to actually read what happened in the time and not what angry nephews wrote down later. So,
speaking of angry nephews,
yes. Beautiful segue.
Just perfect.
Oh, I forgot to tell you the other thing about niobium is I went and looked at Australian possums and discovered the golden bushtail possum, which is basically a why can I never remember the word when I'm looking for it? No pigment. Help.
Albino?
Albino. When you get albino onto a possum, it turns bright yellow. Ostensibly, it's what Pikachu was based on.
Well, all right.
Yes.
Did not know Pikachu was supposed to be a possum. All right, something's been bothering me. This is not at all related to the podcast, and it's a really boring story, but I'm going to make you and our viewers sit through it anyway.
Let's hear it.
So there is a game that came before Pokemon Go, and it was a similar type of thing where you had to go to a location and do a thing. And I can't think of the name of the game. I'm going to literally go find it right now. Because it's driving me crazy and nobody knows what I'm talking about. So
right? Some kind of treasure hunt game.
It was like some kind of fantasy game. There were two teams and you did tasks or something. I'm going to find it. And then I'm going to tell you what it is. And that's all that I know about that.
Yeah.
Mind you, I will have to. I might not be able to do it right now because I do actually have to look through a bunch of things. I thought it was going to be quicker to find where I was looking for it.
Pokemon Go before Pokemon Go.
Yeah, what?
I do have vague recollections of people when Pokemon Go came out saying, "Oh, you mean right?" There was a Pokemon version of.
There was another game, but I can't think what it was called. Okay, I'll have to do it after the podcast because I couldn't find it in 5 seconds. And despite that being a really boring story that I made you sit through, there will now be no resolution to it.
Oh no!
Because I know someone who plays it, and I can't think of their screen name, so I can't search for it.
Crap. It's kind of like how before the internet assured me I wasn't crazy, I was the only person that I knew who remembered Showbiz Pizza. It's like Showbiz Pizza was a thing that I went to, and then overnight they were suddenly all Chuck E. Cheese's, and I'm like, who's this freaking upstart, and where are my Showbiz pizzas? And people were like, you're what now? Like, come on, there was a gorilla and stuff, and I feel like there was a creature that wasn't really anything, and they were like, yeah, you crazy. It even had the same stupid jingle. Showbiz Pizza, where a kid can be a kid.
Ingress. It's called Ingress.
Ingress.
I knew it was something
I thought you were trying to say English in a weird way.
No, I'm not. I knew it was something that meant door. It's called That's the name. Okay. Oh, that I've been trying to find it for 2 days.
Wow. Yay, the resolution.
Yay! What actually got me to the point of actually figuring it out, it just going through the strange contortions that I just went through in the forum that I share with this person, is that I could leave myself hanging, but I felt really bad leaving you hanging.
Thank you. Yes, that would have bothered me.
Okay.
And I'm sure everybody else.
Indeed.
All of these lovely people. My wrists are not bendy that way.
So that was a noise that happened. All right, let's now that we've got that out of the way,
woo!
Let's read some Tolkien.
Celebrate!
As we recall, many lines of care were smoothed from Theoden's face and did not return.
Yes. I love that line. More dramatic in the movie, but it's more believable in the book.
When Hama had been summoned and had gone, Gandalf led Theoden to a stone seat, and then sat himself before the king upon the topmost stair. Aragorn and his companions stood nearby. "There is no time to tell all that you should hear," said Gandalf. "Yet if my hope is not cheated, a time will come ere long when I can speak more fully. Behold, you are come into a peril greater even than the wit of Wormtongue could weave into your dreams. But see, you dream no longer. You live. Gondor and Rohan do not stand alone. The enemy is strong beyond our reckoning, yet we have a hope at which he has not guessed." Quickly now Gandalf spoke. His voice was low and secret, and none save the king heard what he said. But ever as he spoke, the light shone brighter in Theoden's eye, and at last he rose from his seat to his full height, and Gandalf beside him, and together they looked out from the high place towards the east. "Verily," said Gandalf, now in a loud voice, keen and clear. "Yea, verily, yea." God, I made my friends in Prague watch The Court Jester, and they were like, "What are you doing to us?"
I haven't managed to make my family watch it, but someone has separated the scenes out, and I made Jason watch the Chalice from the Palace bit because I was quoting it and laughing uproariously, and he was like, "It's like in 5 minutes I can make you understand this joke at least." Incidentally, shout out to Glynis Johns. She was so awesome. She's still around?
I have no idea. Tend to doubt it.
Right?
That was a long time ago. Danny Kaye was so great in that movie. When I was a lad, I was gloomy and sad as I was from the day I was born.
When other babes giggled and gurgled and wiggled, something was proudly forlorn.
I proudly was loudly forlorn is the
Proudly was
line.
loudly forlorn. My friends and my family looked at me clammily.
I always heard glammily, as in like gloomily.
Okay.
Anyway,
okay,
we don't
Danny
have to sing the whole song. But...
Watch it.
What?
We need to watch it. Also, my canvas is fuckered up. Yeah,
right, where was I? Verily.
Hey.
That wasn't actually the line. He just says verily.
Okay, fine.
Verily, said Gandalf, now in a loud voice, keen and clear. That way lies our hope, where sits our greatest fear. Doom hangs still on a thread. Yet hope there is still, if we can but stand unconquered for a little while. The others too now turned their eyes eastward. Over the sundering leagues of land, far away they gazed to the edge of sight, and hope and fear bore their thoughts still on, beyond dark mountains to the land of shadow. Where now was the ring-bearer? How thin indeed was the thread upon which doom still hung. It seemed to Legolas, as he strained his far-seeing eyes, that he caught a glint of white. Far away, perchance the sun twinkled on a pinnacle of the Tower of Guard. And further still, endlessly remote and yet a present threat, there was a tiny tongue of flame. Slowly, Theoden sat down again, as if weariness still struggled to master him against the will of Gandalf. He turned and looked at his great house. Alas, he said, that these evil days should be mine. Oof, that line hits different in 2020.
Right?
And should come in my old age instead of that peace which I have earned. Alas for Boromir the brave. The young perish, and the old linger, withering. He clutched his knees with his wrinkled hands. Your fingers would remember their old strength better if they grasped a sword hilt, said Gandalf. Theoden rose and put his hand to his side, but no sword hung at his belt. Where has Grima stowed it? He muttered under his breath. Take this, dear lord, said a clear voice. It was ever at your service. Two men had come softly up the stair and stood now a few steps from the top. Éomer was there. No helm was on his head, no mail was on his breast, but in his hand he held a drawn sword, and as he knelt he offered the hilt to his master. How comes this? Said Theoden sternly. He turned towards Éomer, and the men looked in wonder at him, standing now proud and erect. Oh, Jonald. Where was the old man whom they had left crouching in his chair or leaning on his stick? It is my doing, lord, said Hama, trembling. I understood that Éomer was to be set free. Such joy was in my heart that maybe I have erred. Yet, since he was free again, and he a marshal of the mark, I brought him his sword as he bade me. To lay at your feet, my lord, said Éomer. Hama is like the worst jailer.
Right?
He's just like...
But also his instincts are always sound.
Yeah, no, he has great instincts, but he's just like really terrible at following instructions.
But this is a good guy. We like him, right?
For a moment of silence, Theoden stood looking down at Éomer as he knelt still before him. Neither moved. Will you not take the sword? Said Gandalf. Slowly, Theoden stretched forth his hand. As his fingers took the hilt, it seemed to the watchers that firmness and strength returned to his thin arm. Suddenly he lifted the blade and swung it shimmering and whistling in the air. Then he gave a great cry. His voice rang clear as he chanted in the tongue of Rohan, a call to arms. Arise now, arise, riders of Theoden. Dire deeds awake, dark is it eastward. That horse be bridled, horn be sounded. Forth, Eorlingas! The guards, thinking that they were summoned, sprang up the stair. They looked at their lord in amazement, and then as one man they drew their swords and laid them at his feet. Command us, they said. Westu Theoden how? Cried Éomer. It is a joy to us to see you return into your own. Never again shall it be said, Gandalf, that you come only with grief. Take back your sword, Éomer, sister son, said the king. Go, Hama, and seek my own sword. Grima has it in his keeping. Bring him to me also. Now, Gandalf, you said that you had counsel to give if I would hear it. What is your counsel?
You've already taken it.
You have yourself already taken it, answered Gandalf. To put your trust in Éomer rather than in a man of crooked mind. Look, some of us are using our crooked minds for good, okay? To cast aside regret and fear, to do the deed at hand. Every man that can ride should be sent west at once, as Éomer counseled you. We must first destroy the threat of Saruman while we have time. If we fail, we fall. If we succeed, then we will face the next task. Meanwhile, your people that are left, the women and the children and the old, should fly to the refuges that you have in the mountains. Were they not prepared against just such an evil day as this? Let them take provision, but delay not, nor burden themselves with treasures, great or small. It is their lives that are at stake. This counsel seems good to me now, said Theoden. Let all my folk get ready. But you, my guests, truly you said, Gandalf, that the courtesy of my hall is lessened. You have ridden through the night, and the morning wears away. You have had neither sleep nor food. A guest house shall be made ready. There you shall sleep when you have eaten. Nay, lord, said Aragorn. There is no rest yet for the weary. The men of Rohan must ride forth today, and we will ride.
Good.
Saura don't grow on trees.
We got horses to ride. We got orcs to slay. So well for free.
There ain't no rest for the weary till we destroy the ring for good. The men of Rohan must ride forth today, and we will ride with them, axe, sword, and bow. We did not bring them to rest against your wall, Lord of the Mark. And I promised it. What?
That still rankles?
Yeah, he's still mad about that. They're also still against the wall. They're like 2 feet away.
Right. I keep losing your place, sorry. But not
Oh, no, I didn't lose my place. I was drinking water.
Oh, okay.
Now I did. We did not bring them to rest against your wall, Lord of the Mark. And I promised Éomer that my sword and his should be drawn together. Now indeed there is hope of victory, said Éomer. Hope, yes, said Gandalf. But Isengard is strong, and other perils draw ever nearer. Do not delay, Theoden, when we are gone. Lead your people swiftly to the hold of Dunharrow in the hills. Nay, Gandalf, said the king, you do not know your own skill in healing. It shall not be so. I myself will go to war, to fall in the front of the battle if it must be. Thus shall I sleep better. Then even the defeat of Rohan will be glorious in song, said Aragorn. The armed men that stood near clashed their weapons, crying, The Lord of the Mark will ride! Forth the Orlingas! But your people must not be both unarmed and shepherdless, said Gandalf. Who shall guide them and govern them in your place?
They're such losers. They will totally They need to be shepherded.
I'm not saying your people are sheep. I'm just saying they can't go shepherdless.
Yeah.
I will take thought for that ere I go, answered Theoden. Here comes my counselor. At that moment, Hama came again from the hall. Behind him, cringing between 2 other men, came Grima, the Worm-tongue. His face was very white. His eyes blinked in the sunlight. Hama knelt and presented to Theoden a long sword in a scabbard clasped with gold and set with green gems. Here, Lord, is Herogrim, your ancient blade, he said. It was found in his chest. Loath was he to render up the keys. Many other things are there which men have missed. You lie, said Worm-tongue, and this sword your master himself gave into my keeping. And now he requires it of you again, said Theoden. Does that displease you? Assuredly not, Lord, said Worm-tongue. I care for you and yours as best I may. But do not weary yourself or tax too heavily on your strength. Let others deal with these irksome guests. Your meat is about to be set on the board. Will you not go to it? I will, said Theoden, and let food for my guests be set on the board beside me. The host rides today. Send the heralds forth. Let them summon all who dwell nigh. Every man and strong lad able to bear arms, all who have horses. Let them be ready in the saddle at the gate ere the 2nd hour from noon. Dear Lord, cried Wormtongue. "It is as I feared. This wizard has bewitched you. Are none to be left to defend the golden hall of your fathers and all your treasure? None to guard the lord of the mark?" "If this is bewitchment," said Theoden, "it seems to me more wholesome than your whisperings. Your leechcraft ere long would have had me walking on all fours like a beast." "No, not one shall be left, not even Grima. Grima shall ride too. Go. You have yet time to clean the rust from your sword." "Mercy, lord," whined Wormtongue, groveling on the ground. "Have pity on one worn out in your service." So there's a song from a show called Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which sounds like a super sexist and terrible show, but it's actually mocking all of those tropes and written and run by a woman and super feminist. But anyway,
Sweet.
It's the
nice plug. Well done.
Well, I wanted to preface it with that because otherwise it's like, why the hell are you watching a show called Crazy Ex-Girlfriend? But no, it's great. It's the girl who did the "Fuck Me Ray Bradbury" song.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so she was the showrunner on this show for a little while. But there's a song in there that this reminds me of, and it's called "After Everything I've Done for You That You Didn't Ask For."
Sounds quite Garfunkel and Oates, frankly.
It is a bit that way. It's a musical, so there's all of these numbers that pop up throughout the show as she's trying to like get back together with this ex-boyfriend that she thinks is gonna like solve all her problems and whatever. And then every once in a while someone will just, start dancing and singing and
like you do.
Like you do. Okay, where am I here? Have pity on one worn out in your service. Send me not from your side. I at least will stand by you when all others have gone. Do not send your faithful Grima away. You have my pity, said Theoden, and I do not send you away from my side. I go. Bleh. This is phrased really hard to read. Okay. You have my pity, and I do not send you from my side. I go myself to war with my men. I bid you come with me and prove your faith. Wormtongue looked from face to face. In his eyes was the hunted look of a beast seeking some gap in the ring of his enemies. He licked his lips with a long, pale tongue.
Yeah.
No, right? Ugh. Such a resolve might be expected from a lord of the house of Eorl, old though he be, he said. But those who truly love him would spare his failing years. Yet I see that I come too late. Others, whom the death of my lord would perhaps grieve less, have already persuaded him. If I cannot undo their work, hear me at least in this, lord. One who knows your mind and honors your commands should be left in Edoras. Appoint a faithful steward. Let your counselor Grima keep all things till your return, and I pray that we may see it, though no wise man will deem it hopeful. Eomer laughed. And if that plea does not excuse you from war, most noble Wormtongue, he said, what office of less honor would you accept? To carry a sack of meal up into the mountains, if any man would trust you with it? Nay, Eomer, you do not fully understand the mind of Master Wormtongue, said Gandalf, turning his piercing glance upon him. He is bold and cunning. Even now he plays a game with peril and wins a throw. Hours of my precious time he has wasted already. Down, snake, he said suddenly in a terrible voice. Down on your belly. How long is it since Saruman bought you? What was the promised price? When all the men were dead, you were to pick your share of the treasure and take the woman you desire. Too long have you watched her under your eyelids and haunted her steps. Eomer grasped his sword.
I really want to know.
What?
How does Gandalf know that?
I think Gandalf is psychic.
Oh, okay, that works. That explains a lot.
I know, right? Like, at least since he came back, I think he, if not psychic, he's like bordering on or whatever.
Right. He does say, I've looked into his mind and I see his doubt and all kinds of stuff like that. So yeah, that figures.
Mm-hmm. Eomer grasped his sword. That I knew already, he muttered. For that reason I would have slain him before, forgetting the law of the hall. But there are other reasons. He stepped forward, but Gandalf stayed him with his hand. Eowyn is safe now, he said. But you, Wormtongue, you have done what you could for your true master. Some reward you have earned at least. Yet Saruman is apt to overlook his bargains. I should advise you to go quickly and remind him, lest he forget your faithful service. You lie, said Wormtongue. That word comes too often easy from your lips.
That word comes too often and too easily to your lips is one of my favorite lines.
Idiot. So that's what Gandalf says.
Right.
Said Gandalf. I do not lie. See, Theoden, here is a snake. With safety you cannot take it with you, nor can you leave it behind. To slay it would be just. But it was not always as it now is. Once it was a man, and did you service in its fashion. Give him a horse, and let him go at once, wherever he chooses. By his choice you shall judge him. Do you hear this, Wormtongue? Said Theoden. This is your choice. To ride with me to war, and let us see in battle whether you are true, or to go now whither you will. But then, if ever we meet again, I shall not be merciful. Slowly Wormtongue rose. He looked at them with half-closed eyes. Last of all, he scanned Theoden's face and opened his mouth as if to speak. Then suddenly he drew himself up. His hands worked, his eyes glittered. Such malice was in them that men stepped back from him. He bared his teeth, and then with a hissing breath he spat before the king's feet, and darting to one side, he fled down the stair. After him, said Theoden. See that he does no harm to any, but do not hurt him or hinder him. Give him a horse if he wishes it. And if any will bear him, said Eomer. One of the guards ran down the stair. Another went to the well at the foot of the terrace, and in his helm drew water. With it he washed clean the stones that Wormtongue had defiled.
That would so be me. I would be the soldier doing that shit. Like, ew, 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 ew. No.
Right, it's really gross. And particularly right now, I'm very sensitive to things like that. I'm like, you don't spit in public. What's wrong with you? I mean, I always thought that, to be fair.
Right.
I really hope that as like a thing is just going to be done after COVID.
Oh, I really hope so too. Of course, I thought stupidity as a thing might be making a bow out, and that has not seemed to happen. So,
oh, honey, that was very optimistic.
I know. I am so dismayed. One of my favorite coffee shops here in the Springs. Last time I went there, like a month ago, they weren't wearing masks. They weren't enforcing any rules, and I was like, okay, I'm not. These are people I've known and loved for years. I'm not going to ask them who they're supporting. I'm not going to bring up politics, but I'm also not going to come back while the plague lasts, because clearly you're watching the wrong news, and
it's not safe.
It's not safe. I'm not willing to be party to this.
That's a shame. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Grr.
Back to Middle Earth.
Only ones who make a decent Mayan mocha anymore. So I'll have to go without my favorite drink until it's over.
Yeah. Well, I tried to drink a mocha yesterday so here's the thing. I started getting sick when I ate cheese, and I was like, oh no, I've become lactose intolerant. I will stop drinking milk, and if I do need to have some dairy, I'll have a Lactaid first. And so I did for a few months, and then I was like, I can eat like small amounts of things without Lactaid, and it doesn't seem to be bothering me. So maybe I wasn't lactose intolerant after all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then yesterday.
I see where this is going.
This is going to yesterday, where I went to have coffee with a friend and bought a mocha and drank most of it, and then was like, I feel like I'm about to throw up on my friend's shoes.
Oh,
So I am in fact probably almost definitely totally lactose intolerant. Well, not totally is the thing. Like some things don't bother me, they never have, but um the point being I
yeah.
also have to give up mochas because as I said to Sandy, death before almond milk.
We do not negotiate with terrorists.
I hate almond milk and soy milk and rice milk so much. I
How
won't
about
do it.
oat milk? Huh?
All of the milk substitutes. I hate them. They don't taste right. The consistency's wrong. They don't like no.
No.
I'll put lactose-free milk in my tea and I
They're
just
all
won't
carob.
get milk drinks.
They're all carob.
They're just gross. Like when I was dating Josh, he used to give me almond milk in my tea because he's lactose intolerant.
Ah.
And he was like, "Well, it doesn't really taste like anything." And I was like, "That's the problem."
Neither does water, so I'm gonna pour extra water in. Like, come on.
Right? Like I have to have something in my tea because otherwise the tannin is problematic for my stomach. But
Yeah, that is a familiar problem. I have to be careful. I have to be a lot more careful with my tea intake than my coffee intake. Isn't that odd?
that's interesting. I could see that though.
Right? I can drink a ton of coffee and my heart will skip, but my stomach is fine. Whereas if I drink a ton of tea, my heart is fine, but my stomach starts stabbing.
Yeah, I drink a couple of cups of tea a day, but I always put milk in them. Otherwise, like I
Yeah.
can't drink it without.
Absolutely.
But that just means I need to get some more. That was the other thing was I had been drinking lactose-free milk and then we ran out and I was like, well, I haven't reacted to like I've been eating cottage cheese. I've been like it's been fine. I haven't reacted.
Still got those enzymes.
Yeah, apparently not so much. It turns out that if you eat a small amount of something, your body may be able to tolerate it, but still can't tolerate a large amount of the same thing.
Fair enough.
Which I knew, but did not connect.
Have to keep relearning.
Mm-hmm.
Familiar.
Yeah.
I did that with wheat, actually. Matter of fact, my body had reached an equilibrium, and I was like, maybe I'm back to some kind of sort of at least mostly normal. And and that's the kicker is it takes a few days for anything to have an effect. So
Yeah.
I ate a sandwich a day for like 3 days, and then I had flaming hot poker days for 4 days. And after the first one, I was like, okay, no more. And no more wheat. And I had to wait the 4 days for my body to be like, oh, okay, yeah. And then it was back to almost equilibrium again. And I was like, okay, so yeah.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is like once your body is like in an equilibrium where it's not exposed to the thing anymore, then
Yeah.
when it does react, it reacts harder.
Yeah.
So
and
like
I'm not going completely gluten free. I have like my body doesn't seem to mind the little sprinkly things on a California roll or just wheat as an accent to food.
mm-hmm.
Seems to be fine. But not bread. No bread, no muffins, no cake. All of those things I'm
Yeah.
done. And you think it would be a terrible sacrifice, but if you knew what a flaming hot poker day felt like, there's no sacrifice too hard.
I mean, it's an evocative name.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
it's accurate.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, right? It's like, yeah, the consequences of doing it are worse than not having it. Like I was sick, like I didn't eat dinner last night because I started drinking the smoke at like 4:30 and then I couldn't like I was sick for the rest of the night and I was like, okay, this is fun.
It's I feel like I saw Penn Jillette getting asked if because he was told, like, go lose a ton of weight or die. So he went on an extremely regimented diet. And then even when he came out of that diet, he there's a lot of shit he just can't eat anymore. And people ask him, do you ever miss pizza? And he's like, no, not when not like, it's pizza or it's life. I like life.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like, I don't really miss eating big chunks of cheese. Like, when I stopped doing it, I didn't miss it.
Right. And to not be in pain is a really nice thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's when you're hanging out with someone you haven't seen in a couple months and you can't focus on the conversation because you're just trying not to throw up on them. It's like not really a satisfying social interaction.
No, not worth it.
No.
Not worth it for the milk.
Nope.
Anyhow, where were we?
We were at the guard washing the stones that Wormtongue spat on.
Because I would totally do that.
Now, my guests, come, said Theoden. Come and take such refreshment as haste allows. They passed back into the great house. Already they heard below them in town the heralds crying and the war horns blowing, for the king was to ride forth as soon as the men of the town and those dwelling near could be armed and assembled. At the king's board sat Eomer and the 4 guests, and there also waiting upon the king was the lady Eowyn. They ate and drank swiftly. The others were silent while Theoden questioned Gandalf concerning Saruman. How far back his treachery goes, who can guess, said Gandalf. He was not always evil. Once I do not doubt that he was the friend of Rohan. And even when his heart grew colder, he found you useful still. But for long now he has plotted your ruin, wearing the mask of friendship, until he was ready. In those years, Wormtongue's task was easy, and all that you did was swiftly known in Isengard, for your land was open, and strangers came and went. Never Wormtongue's whispering was in your ears, poisoning your thought, chilling your heart, weakening your limbs, while others watched and could do nothing, for your will was in his keeping. But when I escaped and warned you, then the mask was torn for those who would see. After that, Wormtongue played dangerously, always seeking to delay you, to prevent your full strength being gathered. He was crafty, dulling men's wariness or working on their fears as served the occasion. Do you not remember how eagerly he urged that no man should...
Topical.
Yeah. Do you not remember how eagerly he urged that no man should be spared on a wild goose chase northward, when the immediate peril was westward? He persuaded you to forbid Eomer to pursue the raiding orcs. If Eomer had not defied Wormtongue's voice speaking with your mouth, those orcs would have breached Isengard by now, bearing a great prize. Not, indeed, that prize which Saruman desires above all else, but at least 2 members of my company, sharers of a secret hope, of which even to you, Lord, I cannot yet speak openly. Dare you think of what they might now be suffering, or what Saruman might now have learned to our destruction? I owe much to Eomer, said Theoden. Faithful heart may have forward tongue. Say also, said Gandalf, that to crooked eyes truth may wear a wry face.
You have no idea how often that comes up in conversation, but I refrain from saying it because people would just kind of look at me.
Fair. Indeed, my eyes were almost blind, said Theoden. Most of all I owe to you, my guest. Once again you have come in time. I would give you a gift ere we go, at your own choosing. You have only to name aught that is mine. I reserve only my sword. Whether I came in time or not is yet to be seen, said Gandalf. But as for your gift, Lord, I will choose one that will fit my need, swift and sure. Give me Shadowfax. He was only lent before, loan we may call it. You stole him, Gandalf.
Stole him. You fucking stole the horse.
You loaned him to me unwillingly.
Yeah. At least he's kind of acknowledging that. Like, can we call it a loan?
Let's pretend you loaned him to me.
Yeah.
But now I shall ride him into great hazard, setting silver against black. I would not risk anything that is not my own. And already there is a bond of love between us. You choose well, said Theoden, and I give him now gladly, yet it is a great gift. There is none like to Shadowfax. In him one of the mighty steeds of old has returned. None such shall return again. And to you, my other guests, I will offer such things as may be found in my armory. Swords you do not need, but there are helms and coats of mail of cunning work, gifts to my fathers out of Gondor. Choose from these ere we go, and may they serve you well. Now men came bearing raiment of war from the king's hoard, and they arranged arrayed They arrayed Aragorn and Legolas in shining mail. Helms too they chose, and round shields. Their bosses were overlaid with gold and set with gems, green and red and white. That's a really bad design.
Right?
Don't put gold in the middle of your shield. That's just going to get scratched off immediately.
Maybe that's the point. It's like a sacrificial boss.
I guess.
Or
Gandalf
maybe
took...
they were brass and they just looked gold.
It's possible. Although if you're going to set it with gems, like you probably are going to put real gold on there.
Right? Bit weird, but okay.
I'm no Smith. I'm just saying. Gandalf took no armor, and Gimli needed no coat of rings, even if one had been found to match his stature. For there was no hauberk in the hordes of Edoras of better make than his short corselet, forged beneath the mountain in the north. But he chose a cap of iron and leather that fitted well upon his round head, and a small shield he also took. It bore the running horse, white upon green, that was the emblem of the house of Eorl. May it keep you well, said Theoden. It was made for me in Thengil's day, while still I was a boy. Gimli bowed. I am proud, Lord of the Mark, to bear your device, he said. Indeed, sooner would I bear a horse than be borne by one. I love my feet better. But maybe I shall come yet where I can stand and fight. It may well be so, said Theoden. The king now rose, and at once Eowyn came forward bearing wine. Fethu Theoden Hal, she said, receive now this cup and drink in happy hour. Health be with thee at thy coming. Dang it. He does this sometimes where he just puts things backwards. Health be with thee at thy going and coming.
Yeah.
Theoden drank from the cup, and she then proffered it to the guests. As she stood before Aragorn, she paused suddenly and looked upon him, and her eyes were shining. And he looked down upon her fair face and smiled. But as he took the cup, his hand met hers, and he knew that she trembled at the touch.
Hmm.
Hail, Aragorn, son of Arathorn, she said. Hail, Lady of Rohan, he answered, but his face now was troubled, and he did not smile. Oops.
Yeah.
Theoden, I'm not gonna marry your niece. Sorry,
Right.
didn't realize I was doing that.
I just can't help it. I'm so sexy.
I was gonna say I'm too sexy for this cup. When they had all drunk, the king went down the hall to the doors. There the guards awaited him, and heralds stood, and all the lords and chiefs were gathered together that remained in Edoras or dwelt nearby. Behold, I go forth, and it seems like to be my last riding, said Theoden. I have no child. Theodored, my son, is slain. I name Eomer, my sister's son, to be my heir. If neither of us return, then choose a new lord as you will. But to someone I must now entrust my people that I leave behind, to rule them in my place. Which of you will stay? No man spoke. Is there none whom you would name? In whom do my people trust? In the house of Eorl, answered Hama. But Eomer I cannot spare, nor would he stay, said the king. And he is the last of that house.
Foot in mouth.
She's like, I'm right here, Uncle Theoden. Excuse me. I said not Eomer, answered Hama, and he is not the last. There is Eowyn, daughter of Eamund, his sister. She is fearless and high-hearted. All love her. Let her be as lord to the Eorlingas while we are gone.
Damn it, now I'm realizing that Hom is one of my favorite characters. Like, he's got 5 lines. Every single one of them is incredibly incisive and insightful, and then he dies. Meh.
Yeah. It shall be so, said Theoden. Let the heralds announce to the folk that the Lady Eowyn will lead them. Then the king sat upon a seat before his doors, and Eowyn knelt before him and received from him a sword and a fair corslet. Farewell, sister-daughter, he said. Dark is the hour, yet maybe we shall return to the Golden Hall. But in Dunharrow the people may long defend themselves, and if the battle go ill, thither will come all who escape. Speak not so, she answered. A year shall I endure for every day that passes until your return. But as she spoke, her eyes went to Aragorn, who stood nearby.
Girl, you are not subtle.
Not even a little. The king shall come again, he said. Fear not. Not west, but east does our doom await us. We're super close to the end of the chapter. I'm going for it.
Go for it.
The king now went down the stair with Gandalf beside him. The others followed. Aragorn looked back as they passed towards the gate. Alone, Eowyn stood before the doors of the house at the stair's head. The sword was set upright before her, and her hands were laid upon the hilt. She was clad now in mail, and shone like silver in the sun. Gimli walked with Legolas, his axe on his shoulder. Well, at last we set off, he said. Men need many words before deeds. My axe is restless in my hands, though I doubt not that these Rohirrim are fell-handed when they come to it. Nonetheless, this is not the warfare that suits me. How shall I come to the battle? I wish I could walk and not bump like a sack at Gandalf's saddlebow. A safer seat than many, I guess, said Legolas. Yet doubtless Gandalf will gladly put you down on your feet when blows begin, or Shadowfax himself. An axe is no weapon for a rider. And a dwarf is no horseman. It is Orknechts I would hew, not shave the scalps of men, said Gimli, patting the haft of his axe. At the gate they found a great host of men, old and young, already in the saddle. More than 1,000 were there mustered. Their spears were like a springing wood. Loudly and joyously they shouted as Theoden came forth. Some held in readiness the king's horse, Snowmane, and others held the horses of Aragorn and Legolas. Gimli stood ill at ease, frowning, but Eomer came up to him, leading his horse. Hail, Gimli Gloin's son, he cried. I have not had time to learn gentle speech under your rod, as you promised. Oh, Donald.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a vivid mental image. But shall we not put aside our quarrel? At least I will speak no evil again of the Lady of the Wood. I will forget my wrath for a while, Eomer, son of Eamund, said Gimli. But if ever you chance to see the Lady Galadriel with your eyes, then you shall acknowledge her the fairest of ladies, or our friendship will end.
God, I love Gimli.
Gimli is such a wife guy. She's not even his wife.
No, but she is his lady. He is your classic chivalry person.
Yep, that is courtly love at its finest.
Yep.
So be it, said Eomer. But until that time, pardon me, and in token of pardon ride with me, I beg. Gandalf will be at the head with the Lord of the Mark, but Firefoot, my horse, will bear us both if you will. I thank you indeed, said Gimli, greatly pleased. I will gladly go with you, if Legolas, my comrade, may ride beside us. It shall be so,
Sure. Comrade.
Eomer. Legolas upon my left, and Aragorn upon my right, and none will dare to stand before us. Where is Shadowfax? Said Gandalf. Running wild over the grass, they answered. He will let no man handle him. There he goes, away down by the ford, like a shadow among the willows. Gandalf whistled and called aloud the horse's name, and far away he tossed his head and neighed, and turning, sped towards the host like an arrow. Were the breath of the west wind to make a body visible, even so would it appear, said Eomer, as the great horse ran up until he stood before the wizard. The gift seems already to be given, said Theoden, but hearken all. Here now I name my guest, Gandalf Greyhame, wisest of counselors, most welcome of wanderers, a lord of the Mark, a chieftain of the Eorlingas while our kin shall last. And I give to him Shadowfax, prince of horses.
Damn.
I thank you, Theoden King, said Gandalf. Like, what else are you going to do? Okay, cool, I'm a lord now. Fine, sure, why not?
What? All I wanted was a horse, man.
Well, I think he can't give the horse to anyone who's not a Lord of the Mark.
Oh, so it's like making Buttercup Princess of Hammersmith.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I thank you, Theoden King, said Gandalf. And suddenly he threw back his grey cloak and cast aside his hat and leaped to horseback. I just picture him being like, "Fwing!"
Fwing! Very drag queen motion right there.
Grandmama, it's me, Anastasia. He wore no helm nor mail. His snowy hair flew free in the wind. His white robes shone dazzling in the sun.
Oh.
Behold the White Rider, cried Aragorn, and all took up the words. Our king and the White Rider, they shouted. Forth, Eorlingas! The trumpet sounded. The horses reared and neighed. Spear clashed on shield. And then the king raised his hand, and with a rush like the sudden onset of a great wind, the last host of Rohan rode thundering into the west. Far over the plain Eowyn saw the glitter of their spears, as she stood still, alone, before the doors of the silent house.
They really do fuck with Eowyn more than they should. Or I don't know. They underestimate Eowyn.
Well, the curse of being competent and female in a male-dominated society.
It's true.
Like, oh, you're good at stuff. Here, do it. I mean, we're not going to reward you or respect you for it, but just you do that.
You do
good
that
job.
thing. Yeah, you're gonna. You mean you can fight? No, no, you don't need to fight.
No.
We've got men for that. So I cannot deny that she looks like a bunny.
I didn't know if I should mention it.
Yeah, she looks like a bunny. But so it's going to be helpful, I think, when I get it clear that this is a tail. Although at that point, people will be like, so it's a yellow rat? Fuck it. The 4 people who know about the golden bush tail possum will be like, ah! And that's who I'm painting for every time.
For sure.
Yeah.
So it's after 8.
It is after 8. I had better let you go. Do things.
Yeah. I got to get ready to go back to work tomorrow.
Bleh. Gotta go get the child to bed.
Aye.
So I will see you on Wednesday a little later than this, I assume, unless you want to move Wednesday up to 7 o'clock too.
I can't. I work until 8.
That's right, you do.
At some point, I'll be changing my schedule, and at that point, we can move it.
All right. This was fun.
'Twas.
I got her little face. I haven't quite got the highlights right yet.
I like her face, though.
Yeah.
She does look like a bunny, but like she's really cute.
A bunny with a rat tail. That is what we're going for. That's what a possum is. And I love you.
I love you too.
Cuidado.
Llamas.
Bye.
Bye.